Thank you, Yasmin. Good morning, guys. Thanks for taking time out today and attending. I'm sure that you're kind of very busy in this period, as we all are. Just to give you an insight, we've been working with the FinTech Hive for a few years now as a preferred talent partner with them. That meaning is we effectively advise and partner with them and coach cohorts, new startups that are being onboarded to the FinTech Hive with all things recruitment and talent. Okay, we have been here since 2010. We ourselves, 11 years ago, were also a startup, so we can actually feel some of your pains. Combined within the company, we have over 50 years of experience gained from global markets in the recruitment field, predominantly within the tech space. We have a very, very large social media following, which we're very proud of. We're actually the most followed company in the world. So there's some great insights that you can chat to me about if you want to kind of increase social media presence with your company. We are specialists within FinTech itself, IT, telco, digital, and more. Offices, the head offices here in the UAE and Dubai. And we also have an entity in Singapore, London, and most recently Saudi. However, that was put on hold during COVID, but that's now being set up as we speak. Guys, I can't actually see anyone, so I'm going to have to use Zoom, and if any of you want to interact, please raise your hand, because what I'm keen to do today with startups, there's a number of fundamentals in terms of subjects that I'm sure that you're all going through, and you will all be at a different phase of your roadmap and strategy in terms of, you know, whether you've launched your product, whether you're scaling up your project, whether you're going to market, whether you're signing partnerships, and so forth. Look, some of the fundamentals of hiring and some of the biggest challenges that you will face are lack of hiring experience. Typically, a startup is founded by a subject matter expert of that industry, someone from the tech sector, if it's obviously tech, someone from maybe a strategic background, or just a common entrepreneur, right? You're rarely going to have people that are experts in the field of HR and talent. Likewise, your recruitment planning and strategy is another key fundamental of hiring. But at what stage do you engage with this? You know, is it fundamental now? Is it more fundamental for you to put, for instance, your company branding and identity in place? Okay. Other key subjects: what is your credibility in the market? Do you have a reputation in the market? Do you have a reputation in the subject matter or field that you're actually aligning your product or service or concept to? How do you stand out from the crowd? Are you active? Are you exhibiting at events? Are you in the press? Are you constantly updating your social media channels, writing Medium articles around your business? Another typical hiring challenge, and probably the biggest one, is budget to hire, lack of marketing. How do you overcome this? Look, and look, it's such a broad subject, and I'm sure that many of you have hired before. I don't know if it's been as a startup or in your previous lives in the corporate world, but the intricacies of hiring a startup, it's that chicken and egg scenario. What do you do first? What is most important to you at that given time? Okay. So without further ado, is there anything that anyone has sort of on the tip of their tongue now that they would like to address? Because all of these subjects are so intertwined. For instance, if you're completely greenfield, I would always advise someone to have their recruitment plan in place first. Or maybe even, do you have your corporate guidelines in place, your brand strategy in place? Do you have your company branding in place, and so forth? So you all may be at different stages of your of your involvement. So if there's anything that you would like to raise now, can you feel free to speak up, or just kind of ask a question or raise your hand before I go on and go through this presentation. Nope.
Okay, guys, don't be shy here. I know that you guys all have a lot of great questions in every session, so please do feel free to ask Gary or to give Gary a couple of themes that you'd like him to cover.
There's a hand there. Brilliant.
Hello.
Hello there.
This is a really useful subject for me, as I
Thank
actually
you.
lead the hiring in our startup. So
Brilliant.
it's very stressful, and there's a lot of questions that I get as well from my co-founders about creating a culture remotely or not creating a culture remotely at all, and trying to have the whole team work in the same office, which is proving more difficult after COVID times. So I think that would be a topic I'd be interested in hearing about, just to solve a dilemma, basically.
No problem at all. So right now you have staff working remotely, correct?
Yes.
Are they in country right now?
No. So
Okay.
they're all based outside of the UAE.
Okay, so it's a completely distributed team from that side.
Yes.
Okay, so look, I think first and foremost, I think that when you're working remotely, and we've all had this experience this year, is quite alien to a lot of us, who haven't done it before pre-COVID, is that it's hard to embed that DNA and that office culture when you're doing it remotely. However, there are ways in which you can overcome this, and I've been helping a friend with a remote business recently, and I think that you just need to be creative in terms of your engagement levels of look, outside of the work and the team catch-ups and the project updates and all things work. Have you, for instance, ever had lunch together over Zoom? Have you ever celebrated a particular day in that country? So for instance, here in the UAE, we're blessed of being, 180 plus or 90 countries of nationalities. I pretty much know the calendar of all the religious days of most continents of the world now. And even in our office, we have over 10, 12 different nationalities. Literally, if you want to lose weight in our office, it won't happen because there are cakes and donuts and something every other week here due to a celebration. So I think you just need to create some sort of virtual culture of them events and activities that you would do in office. Try and be creative and having some team building exercises. I think bringing that togetherness in, keeping them aware of maybe, say, if they're tech teams, tech isn't really involved in marketing, but when there is a marketing launch, get them on the call. Have that collective culture. I think is that kind of what you're asking? Is that?
It's a good validation. We usually do coffee chats Fridays. So we have everyone join in for an hour and we don't talk work. We just spend time discussing weekends and just, casual chats. So that has worked really well for us. But I didn't think about different countries' holidays. That's definitely something that we can implement and have, Christmas dinners or Halloween and everyone dresses up for a call. So definitely useful. Thank you.
And something else as well that has worked with us ourselves. We've been getting our staff to have a creative game day. Okay, so every Tuesday afternoon from 4 o'clock, a member or two members of the team will create a game day. So we've done Double Jeopardy in the office. We've done treasure hunts, which they've organized, and it's a great way of just mixing with maybe other team members that you are typically not engaged with. So if you're sat in tech and somebody's sat in marketing, there's probably limited sort of communication or engagement unless he's on the front end and doing something with the UX. But if he's sat on the back end coding, it's very rare that he'll have daily engagement with that person. So what you would then do, you would connect them to employees together and you get them to work on something collaborative for the office so they can benefit from it. So You know, it could be something like, you know, what are your top 5 books? You know, get the people to write their top 5 books down, discuss them. Why? You know, look, I think the one thing that a lot of this remote working lacks is that you almost forget you forget the human being aspect of that person and the interests and the hobbies and what their general character is. I think we lose a lot of that from this work from home and this distributed team. So I think if you can just bring that out in terms of, you have a book day, you have a film day, you sit on Zoom for an hour talking about your favorite films. You know, look, it's just that simple engagement. Look, we had a guy that worked for us, for instance, and nobody knew, but he was a guitarist for you know, and he supported some quite well-known country music stars, and we sent his video around the office, and the perception of him completely changed, and he even did a performance for us once. So it's just kind of pulling out, you know, extracting, I think, the intricacies of that person's personality and getting them to engage with maybe other members of the team in a different way outside of work. So yeah, I hope that helps. Melissa, was it Melissa?
We also have a couple of questions of themes in the chat box, Gary, because I don't think you can see them. Is that correct?
No, I can't see the questions.
Okay, so one of them is from Mufid, just, you know, themes around or tips and tricks around hiring a technical team, whether it's machine learning engineers, data scientists, full stack developers. And then we have another one from Laura. She's saying that hiring in startups can be a challenge when you're hiring for diverse roles for your department that you may not have full experience in. So what are tips for that?
For hiring for diverse roles in departments
that
you don't have experience in. Okay.
Exactly. And then the other one was around more tech, like disruptive tech. How tips around hiring for a more technical team?
I would imagine from the gentleman, and I missed his name. Yeah, Mafid. Thank you for that question, Mafid. And that's very hard for non-technical people. And I think that the strong advice I'd give, and the predominant one, would be you would need some kind of advisor, I think, and it could be through a friend, a contact, even through a recruiter that specializes in it, you know, that doesn't want to be effectively paid. He advises you on this tech hiring. Look, there's only so much you can vet in terms of from a human side, but how do you technically test them? Look, there's plenty of technical testing websites, and I'll be more than willing to share them afterwards in terms of that you can buy a subscription, you can get people technically tested through a site. That's something I stress with for every startup, regardless. Get these guys technically tested, because in this region, one of my notes at the end of the presentation is what you see is not always what you get. Okay, we ourselves have hired some of the best recruiters that have landed in the UAE, and when you put them behind a desk, how do you measure work ethic? How do you measure conduct? How do you measure application? You can't measure them things until you see them on the job. So I think creating a technical team, I think obviously the stack is going to be key, and the platform, and having expertise around that and people that can talk that language. It's a chicken and egg scenario. How do you find someone like that? I think that you're just going to have to either find an expert that has hired in that particular field before, but I think technically testing people, absolutely. Finding people that have worked on a similar stack or platform where you can actually you would know that the front end, the back end, and the full stack guy and so forth have all worked on a similar project. So for instance, there's a few flavors right now in the region where a lot of companies are developing on the same stack. I won't disclose them here, but you know that if you speak to someone from company X or company Y, they have worked on that stack. So there's obviously a talent surplus of people within them companies. But I think, yeah, advisory, technically testing, and maybe doing practical case studies. You have to do practical case studies in terms of let them do a use case, let them do a live software development project. I think one of the things that startups lack here is on the job interviewing. And we ourselves, we work with a very, very unique company here that does real estate software. And it's effectively a bridge between accounting and software. Every time we send a candidate to them, they come to our office, and we as partners, we devised a test and a case study for them that lasts about 2 hours that they do in their office. Only once they do that, do they go through to interview stage. So I think that, look, in a roundabout way, this isn't going to give his complete answer because he's going to have to tailor it for every single role. But I think if he can have an advisor, if he's non-technical, and then implement the testing, the case study, and the practical assessment, I think that will help him a great deal. In terms of the other question, can you remind me of the other question?
The other question was from Laura, and her, sorry, I'm just opening it back up. In terms of hiring for roles that you don't have experience in.
Okay, so imagine, so you're a HR person and you're hiring for a tech person. Again, it's look, it's very difficult. You need to engage with an expert. Look, you cannot cut corners with these. If it's fundamental and critical to the business, please do not cut corners. You need to engage with a party of some sorts that can advise you on this. And look, I don't know how engaged and how much overlap there is with the cohort now at the FinTech High, but maybe call upon, as I mentioned earlier, a typical startup is founded either by a CTO, a strategy guy, a subject matter expert, or so forth. Maybe call the experience of one of your fellow cohorts there, a CTO that can cross-reference a person from another core function of the business. For instance, one of the startups we're helping now, and they're actually a former member of the FinTech Hive. We were hiring a compliance manager for them, and they paid the services, a very small fee, of a compliance director at a bank to do interviews for them. And it was very nominal. So he would do the interviews for them for this skill set. So I think, again, if this person adopts the method earlier, case studies, on the job scenarios, that would mitigate some of the shortfalls. But again, you need to speak to an expert, whether it be in the field or maybe a recruiter. And look, I'm not here to sell recruitment services. Us ourselves, we've been helping the FinTech Highs for a couple of years, and everything we've done is pro bono. So even speaking to people like us, we could advise on that regard. And to mitigate time and effort, if you are going to use the services of a third party, arrange a day, arrange an afternoon, get that guy's time for half a day or a day, and get these candidates to come in and interview them back to back, so you can actually utilize the time of that expert. Outside of this, again, there's online qualification, AI type job boards and critical thinking kind of websites that they can use to mitigate some of the shortfalls in their own knowledge. But look, I think you need to speak to some sort of expert in the field, if that helps.
Okay, there's nothing else right as of now, Gary, so you can go ahead and continue your presentation, and then the rest of the questions you can use the boxes to check once your presentation is done.
Okay, so guys, I'm going to jump through, and I think we covered some of the questions now. Okay, so look, one of the first things that I think everyone has a lack of is hiring experience, okay, and HR talent recruitment experience per se for your own company. And when it's your own company, of course, or a startup, you are not 1/100th of a person in the organization. You're effectively, at times, you could be 50% of the company, you could be 1/3 of the company, you could be 1/4. You know, if you're the third member in the team, you are 1/3 of that company's DNA. Here's a quote that I really like by Richard Fairbank, CEO at Capital One. Okay, at most companies, people spend 1% of their time recruiting and the rest of their time managing recruiting mistakes. Okay, This is a great quote. It's probably more aimed at corporates, but on the flip side, one thing that I'm very, very critical of startups is, as a CEO, a leader, and one of the founders, your time is better vested in doing the more strategic things than some of the more kind of niggly things in the business. And I feel that a lot of startups lose traction because there's so much time wasted through lack of experience in hiring, lack of experience in recruiting, and so forth. Look, we were a startup 10 years ago. And to this day, the best hire we have ever made was the non-revenue generating hire. That was our office manager. And an office manager is a term bandied around here, but effectively in this region, an office manager is your number two. They're your PA, your organizer. They literally are the bridge between you, the business, its customers, and staff coming in. So I think a lot of startups, through my experience here of working with them for many years, they're very scared to make that hire. But I think that if you can mitigate and utilize your time, I would look at the structure of your recruitment plan first, before you start making tactical hires. I think you need to really align your own time in terms of how you're utilizing that. In terms of the lack of recruitment hiring, look, we all know that you typically won't have finance departments, you typically won't have HR departments, but in some of the cases today, I heard someone from the talent and HR team. How do you overcome this? Through lack of experience of hiring, the referral basis. Some of you may be from the region, some of you may be outside of the region. Referrals is a great way of making quick decisions. It means that you have the trust in that person. I always live by the quote, "The good people know good people." People typically wouldn't refer someone if they don't rate that person. Your own networks is also a good time to overcome hiring experience challenges. But again, there's a shelf life with such things with regards to referrals. What you do thereafter, you need to ensure that there's a funnel of candidates constantly coming through to you. Okay, so I think that as businesses grow, you go from 5 to 10 people, the challenge changes. You've got to take advantage of being nimble. You have to think in terms of how you can hire people quickly, promptly, but without obviously mitigating what I mentioned earlier in terms of quality. In terms of recruitment planning, okay, recruitment planning is obviously fundamental to any business. Okay, so you go from one person, 2 person. What's your next key hire? Have you developed your product? Do you need someone to go out to marketing? Is your time being wasted with finance and talking to VCs and so forth? You need to make the decision in terms of look at it from a perspective as, are you hiring for now or are you hiring for 12 months time? I suggest that you plan your recruitment hires for maybe a short, medium and long-term period. So look, within this period for the next 2 to 3 months or 3 to 6 months, we need this problem solved. So what hire do we need to solve that problem? Okay. Do we have a problem with our front end? Do we have a problem with a back end? Right. Obviously that's a core function to the business if it's software. Do we need to focus on marketing? Because in the next 3 to 6 months, we have a ton of events and partnership opportunities. So make your recruitment plan aligned to that time frame, rather than, you want to pay out for a marketing person, but then after the launch has happened and the marketing to be done, is that person going to be surplus to requirements? So I think recruitment planning is key. Sorry about the spelling mistake in the planning there. Hire the right person at the right time. is absolutely key. Look, you guys are all going to have some sort of ethos around your business, okay? You've done a pitch deck at the beginning. You've probably tested your MVP. You may or may not have presented to investors. You need to understand what is critical for you at that time. If you're talking to investors, do you need your own accountant? Do you need someone sat in your office? Do you want to outsource that? If you're going to events, for instance, I mentioned earlier, do you need a marketing person? Is it something that you can do yourself? Or is it something, again, that you can outsource? So I think that the recruitment planning is absolutely critical. So to recap there, hire a person at the right time. Look at the long-term benefits of hiring. I think, again, mentioning, as I mentioned, the good lady sat opposite me now in the other office is our PA and office manager. Without her, our business will crumble. And I always stress that hire the right person at the right time. So let your business plan tell you when the best time to recruit will be. However, do not be afraid to deviate from your plan, because obviously in startups, the roadmap can change over time. Therefore, if you plan to hire X, Y, and then maybe you see a better opportunity to hire in another core function of the business that will benefit you at that point, do not be afraid to pivot or deviate and be flexible on your recruitment planning. Look, the recruitment planning is great, but look, I still feel that companies need to be set up in a way whereby you need to have your brand, your DNA, and your company recognition available to the market. So I think if you're planning to recruit, great, but it's critical that you do the next objective, which is company brand and identity. Look, I think we live in a very unique region here, whereby there's lots of startups, there's lots of global kind of brands that we all have apps for on our phone, lots of conglomerates that are very attractive to work for. We have lots of investment now coming into the startup space, so it has matured. But I think that what happens a lot is that there's a lot of startups that don't invest in their corporate brand and their company brand and identity, i.e. the first thing I do when I do research on any company, you go to their website, then you go to their LinkedIn page, then you go to their Twitter page, then you go and see if they have a Medium page, then you go and see if they have maybe an Instagram, if it's more kind of retail based, and so forth. And I think that the amount of startups that don't engage in creating that brand identity, it really deflects, and as a result, candidates are put off by a lack of traction in the marketplace. Okay, so I think if you are a startup and you are, I don't know what stage of your evolution, you've got to have your skins done. And I mean, you've got to have the skins done. You've got to have a brand identity. You've got to have a good LinkedIn. You've got to have constant updates. You've got to let people know what you're doing. You need to act like a real company. And I know this takes time, and I'm going to repeat a lot of what I've said, okay, constantly. But it doesn't if you know where the avenues are. For instance, you don't have money to hire. You don't have money to pay LinkedIn for a LinkedIn job. Nothing stops you from creating a banner where you can just put your jobs out yourself, put it on your LinkedIn page, share it on your Twitter, share it on your Facebook page, share it on any single page you can, put it under the buy jobs groups on LinkedIn and so forth. So I think your digital presence is key. It's something that you all need to look at. Websites, how many people really truly go to websites unless there's a UX element to it these days? I think that we go to a website and we quickly go to maybe one of their social media pages instead now. I personally, I go to LinkedIn recruitment pages and company pages more than I go to the website. Any recruiter, the first port of call would be the LinkedIn careers page. So if you haven't spent time on maximizing these three kind of complementary channels, I think it's a great way of showing your presence, attracting staff, posting vacancies, and so forth. Outside of the company brand, you've got to think of your career, your personal brand as well. Okay, so as a owner, a founder, I'm not asking everyone to be narcissists here, and me personally, look, I helped our company get 600,000 followers, but I seldomly tweet. I seldomly do anything on LinkedIn. Okay, I'm quite private as a person. However, as a founder, you can be talking, if you are that person, you can be talking about your product, you can be talking about your industry, you can be talking about the region that you work in, you can be talking about your customers. So remember to focus on your personal brand as well as the company brand as well. Look, as a potential candidate looking in, this is what you look for. You look, who is the owner? Who is the founder? Who are the guys I'm going to be working with? Who are their customers? How active are they? Look, the majority of you probably were not job seekers in the last year or so if you're founders or working early in the startup. But what are the first things that you look at when you go to when you apply for a job? I'm sure it's all the below that I mentioned. So look, going back to brand identity, right? What is your mission statement? What are your values? What is the culture? It's hard to build a culture when you're only 2 or 3 people. However, when you start interviewing people, they are going to become your DNA. So they need to know your mission statement. They need to know the values that you have and the values that you need to put into the business. They need to know the culture that you are creating. Build out these statements and values and culture across all your skins and channels, okay? Web, social, LinkedIn, and so forth. Be active yourself. Again, if you're more private, there's ways of doing it. If you're more out there, go to these events, try and get some articles, get some blog posts done, do some medium blogs, do some interviews if you can, show up at events that are related to your business. Look, the majority of our business here at HR Source has been won via events and conferences. We are always active at events. So last week we had the FinTech event, we got GITEX coming, we got a blockchain event, we will be there. And we're not canvassing the business. We're going there to meet with customers that we know, meet with contacts that we know, and find out what's happening in the market. Keep connecting and pipelining people. So if you are using these skins, you can write something simple. Have a careers page domain, careers@hrsource.ae. You can post that on LinkedIn every few weeks. Hey, we are planning to skill up in these areas. If you have XYZ experience, please send your CV to so-and-so. And just start pipelining CVs on the back of this company branding and identity. Guys, if there's any questions, please put your hands up before I continue. I'm going to overlap here. Unknown reputation in the market, gaining credibility. Look, again, the big challenge for startups is gaining your credibility. I'm going to approach a gentleman that wants to work with X startup. How credible are they? One of the biggest questions that we get asked is, do they have funding? Do they pay every month? What is the job stability? How long have they been in the market? Who are the owners? Who are the founders? And so forth. So look, I'm going to repeat a lot of what I mentioned previously. I think that you need to focus on the thought leadership in the industry. You need to attend events, conferences. I know this takes a lot of time. So just position yourself where you can, and at least provide some of your weekly or monthly effort into focusing on that brand. Okay, so your reputation can be expanded into the marketplace. look, I'm sure all of you have testimonials in your phone that are waiting to be called upon. You only ever typically call a reference when you're looking for a job, or maybe for another reason that is personal banking and so forth. But what about as a starter? You've released something. Why don't you call in a favor from one of your first ever managers, or one of the partnerships that you've made, or one of your contacts, or even a friend? Nobody needs to know it's your friend. I'm going to be very, very transparent with you here. Get a testimonial on LinkedIn, you know, because that testimonial on LinkedIn isn't only for you, but it's for the business as well. So you need to gain credibility. You need something that is eye-catching. You need to think of ways that if someone looks at your company, it isn't only about the company, but it's about the people that they work with. It's about the ecosystem that they represent as well. So think about areas like that where you can literally increase the brand identity via yourself, your contacts, and through your own credibility. To refrain on this, don't be passive. Don't be a passive attendee at events. I mentioned that. Become a speaker, sell your expertise, be in the limelight physically or virtually, as I said, even if it means you're posting stuff on social channels. Ask everyone for testimonials, employees, business partners, clients, etc. Promote your values of the company, partnership, and so forth. Look, in terms of this, one thing I didn't mention earlier, promote your values of a company. Do you have a CSR program? Are you fond of a particular charity? Think of areas where you can tap into an ecosystem which isn't related to your particular domain. So, you know, it's Pink October, right? I think you know, promote certain things that are close to you, because you're tapping into another ecosystem that is non-subject matter related. The next thing that I think is quite key, market competition. Look, we're in a very unique market here, and I'm going to give you my own experience. It's so unique, and I'm not here. Look, we're very diverse, we're very ethical, but look, there's no minimum wage. There's kind of an underlying class system, okay, and there isn't fair pay amongst rival companies, okay. I've got examples where company A and company Y are competitors in Europe, and they are equal pay masters. When it comes to the Middle East, there's probably a 50% difference in salaries just because it's the Middle East branch, okay. There lies not only a challenge, but an opportunity for startups, okay. So you will rarely be fighting for talent from top paymasters because of restrictions that you may face. Big corporates typically leads to big money, big organization. They're more rigid than you. They have stability, there's bureaucracy, there's opportunity, and so forth. That's everything pretty much a startup isn't, okay? You're nimble, you're flexible, there's ownership, there's lack of politics. Yeah, there isn't the big, the big carrot of yearly bonuses and big monies, but maybe there's a bigger prize at the end of the hard work and effort through a potential ESOPs, stocks, buyouts, and so forth. So I think that you need to just really understand where you are in the market. You need to understand where the low-hanging fruit is for you, and mentioning what I mentioned earlier. I think we're in an amazing place here because there's so much talent that isn't recognized. And I think that what is overlooked with corporates is corporates typically go for, certificates over experience, and brands over talent, potential versus performance, proven talent versus raw talent. I think it's something that as a startup you need to consider. The market you're in, and you'll be in different markets. Some of you will be competing with different customers. Some of you will be maybe competing with each other. I just think you just need to find your own sweet spot in regards to this. So, look, one of the things that we've done ourselves is and it's worked tremendously well, and I should have actually done a whole presentation on this, is the internship route. Unlike the rest of the world, the Middle East has a severe lack of graduate programs for non-UAE nationals, okay? So if I look around our office now, we have probably 10 to 12 excellent grade A graduates that cannot find jobs in their desired field, for instance, consulting, banking, engineering, and so forth. So it's something that I really, really feel that to overcome the market competition, you need to look at the internship route. Okay, it's a way where you can onboard that DNA that you're looking for. You can onboard someone to fill a particular role. You can train them. Look, you're not getting the end product, but it can maybe fulfill a very, very unique lack of resource in the business. I pivoted there. Market competition in terms of your benefits against corporates. Look, you have to think of the impact that you can have on someone. I myself started with a startup many years ago in London for a recruitment startup. I had a chance to work for Michael Page or a startup. The exposure I received in the startup, I would never ever get back that experience. Being an early member of the team is great, contributing to his DNA, to his values. I think it's something that you guys need to sell. Flexible of working of a startup, like you're not rigid like a typical corporate of a 9 to 5, effectively clocking in, clocking out. If you want to work, for instance, remote working, partly remote working, we do a gym day together. You have an hour off for X, you have a duvet day a month. Please use this. Please use this to make you competitive in the marketplace. Create that culture whereby being a startup, you are offering something that doesn't exist elsewhere. Look, we've had people and candidates that we've placed, and they've left us and other companies to join some of the biggest tech companies in the world. And the first thing they say, the flexibility that we had at HR Source is missed now. I'm working 8 till 10 at night. I'm doing this, I'm doing X, I'm doing Y. I'm having to do reports on weekends. Startup life is not easy. However, make the most of the flexibility that you can offer. Okay. For instance, a simple thing. I don't know if any of you are football fans, and I hate using football analogies, but this is quite a pertinent one. Ronaldo, El Phenomenon, the Brazilian player from the 90s, he was refused an apprenticeship at Santos in Brazil because he asked for a bus ticket. He asked for a simple bus ticket as a part of the contract that can take him to training and back, and they said no. He ended up becoming one of the best players in the world for his generation back then. So I think in terms of offering that flexibility, it could be something simple for somebody, right? In terms of, I need to come in late, or I need to have a gym membership because it's really important to me. Just try and be creative. Okay. Next one, no budget to hire. I think that we've covered this a little bit. However, I think the great way to overcome no budget to hire. Okay. Right. Budgets to hire can mean a number of things. I don't think a lot of you are in a position to pay recruiters, and I think the recruitment ecosystem here is too commercially driven. It's not partnership driven. Okay. I think if you are talking to recruiters, and this is not a plug for ourselves, you're in control. You are always in control of the negotiation. Okay. Think of ways where you can maybe partner with someone, as I mentioned, from a consultancy basis. Think of almost as a recruitment as a service. For those which majority, I don't think that you are in a position to pay recruiters. Budget to hiring can mean a number of things. Do you have budget for job boards? If so, see if you can pay for a job ad or some sort of advertisement. If you cannot, there's startup job boards, which I would share. There's other job boards here for free. There are groups across social media channels. The LinkedIn side that I mentioned and I keep canvassing, you utilize these free scaling tools. I'm sure all of you know Canva. Create your own job banners, create your own job adverts. Upwork, Fiverr. I myself have used this for a logo. I myself have used this for a community manager, and it's brilliant. And a little tip about Upwork, and I shouldn't be disclosing this. With Upwork, you can engage with people and on Fiverr, and you can take that person offline, i.e. you can have a direct chat with them. Upwork is brilliant for transparency of payment, but if there's something that you just want done with that person, and you can establish a level of trust, you can engage with them directly once they've applied for your job on Upwork. So I think no budget to hire. You just need to be creative with the social channels, the platform tools that are available, the free social media startup job boards. And I strongly advise exploring an internship route. I think that there's a huge talent pool here of really, really smart interns that can fulfill the lack of resource that you have. Right, takeouts, because I'm kind of conscious that we've gone over time here. And I've done a lot of talking, and I wish it was more two-way. The simple takeouts for me with startups. I think that you need to hire and look at potential versus performance. Okay, it's all very well having a guy from one of the other unicorns in the UAE come and join you. He's proven, he's done it before, but is he prepared to roll up his sleeves again? Is he prepared to get in the trenches for you? Is he prepared to contribute to the team in other ways now that he's probably moved into and evolved into a more of a structured way of working? So I would always say, look at potential versus performance. Do not look at brands. Do not look at someone based on just their university, just the brand they work with, just their internship that they had, just the companies that they work with. Look at the potential of that person. How do you measure that potential again? Reverting back to maybe some practical examinations, some tests, some case studies. Bring them in your office for a trial. Let them do 1 or 2 days with you. Let them do a week paid. When we started our internship, we did a paid internship for, I think it was for the first 3 months before we made people hires, full-term hires. So that's really, really key. And that couples with the fact, raw talent versus proven talent. Of course, if you need a developer and he's an expert in Rust or Solidity or React.js, of course you need proven talent. But if it's for one of the core functions within the business, look at raw talent that are aligned with your DNA, that are aligned with your mission statement, that is aligned with your original pitch deck, that has the core competencies and the character that you can trust. Okay. Never overrate certificates and never underrate character. Again, character over certificates. I always say that. I think for startups is key. Yes, certificates are great. And I think it's fabulous when it's non-work related certificates that people have done outside of their core work, i.e. that they self-taught themselves Python or they've done a Google AdWords course or something. That's brilliant. So never overrate certificates and never underrate character. Finding underrated talent, again, there's a theme here, versus and underrated talent. Again, I think it's you just need to realize the ecosystem that we're in. Is there a guy, for instance, in the IT field, there's a lot of talent in the vendor space. If you cannot afford someone from a vendor, you would get someone from a reseller or a distributor, because they're the guys that sell these OEM products, but they're being paid a fraction of the cost. And their entire desire is to get up here. So if you can channel that in the appropriate way for your own business, I think that it's very possible that you find the right talent. Again, the theme is similar. Great talent is always necessary. The right talent. I think I'm going to conclude. What you see is not always what you get. Really, really trial these people. Do case studies. Your hires are going to be key hires. We recently had a gentleman that joined the startup. He promised the world. He got on site. He began remotely. He came from another country and relocated to the UAE. he was not the guy in the CV, and he was not the guy that he interviewed for. He was very work shy. He just delegated everything. He wasn't hands-on. How would have they mitigated that? I told them, did he do a case study? Did he do a practical examination? Did you actually do like a product test with him? All the answers were no. So they hired him anyway. So I think what you see is not always what you get. You have to be smart. You are in control. You don't need the person to sign a contract and be open for gratuity from day one. There are ways around this. I think there's a lot of intricacies and lots of macro and micro things. I can go into more detail, but if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll be more than willing to create a document on any particular process flow, hiring flow. I'll also actually got a startup document that I will send you guys in terms of some of the links that I mentioned, and I can share that with Yasmin afterwards. But guys, if there's any questions, please let me know.